7. Lunch at the George. As we emerged into the market square, I remarked that Mr. Gabler lived up to his name. Poirot assented with a smile. "He'll be rather disappointed when you don't return," I said. "I think he feels he has as good as sold you that house already." "Indeed, yes, I fear there is a deception in store for him. I suppose we might as well have lunch here before returning to London, or shall we lunch at some more likely spot on our way back?" "My dear Hastings, I am not proposing to leave Market Basing so quickly. We have not yet accomplished that which we came to do." I stared. "Do you mean, but, my dear fellow, that's all a washout. The old lady is dead." "Exactly." The tone of that one word made me stare at him harder than ever. It was evident that he had some bee in his bonnet over this incoherent letter. "But if she's dead, Poirot," I said gently, "what's the use? She can't tell you anything now. Whatever the trouble was, it's over and finished with. How lightly and easily you put the matter aside. Let me tell you that no matter is finished with until Hercule Poirot ceases to concern himself with it. I should have known from experience that to argue with Poirot is quite useless." Unwarily I proceeded. "But since she is dead, exactly, Hastings. Exactly, exactly, exactly. You keep repeating the significant point with a magnificently obtuse disregard of its significance. Do you not see the importance of the point? Miss Arundel is dead. But my dear Poirot, her death was perfectly natural and ordinary. There wasn't anything odd or unexplained about it. We have old Gabler's word for that. We have his word that Little Green House is a bargain at £2,850. Do you accept that as gospel also?" "No, indeed. It struck me that Gabler was all out to get the place sold. It probably needs modernizing from top to toe. I'd swear he, or rather his client, will be willing to accept a very much lower figure than that. These large Georgian houses fronting right on the street must be the devil to get rid of." "Eh bien, then," said Poirot. "Do not say, but Gabler says so, as though he were an inspired prophet who could not lie." I was about to protest further, but at this minute we passed the threshold of the George and with an emphatic "chut," Poirot put a damper on further conversation. We were directed to the coffee room, a room of fine proportions, tightly shut windows and an odor of stale food. An elderly waiter attended to us, a slow, heavy-breathing man. We appeared to be the only lunchers. We had some excellent mutton, large slabs of watery cabbage and some dispirited potatoes. Some rather tasteless stewed fruit and custard followed. After gorgonzola and biscuits the waiter brought us 2 cups of a doubtful fluid called coffee. At this point Poirot produced his orders to view and invited the waiter's aid. "Yes, sir. I know where most of these are. Hemel Down is 3 miles away, on the Much Benham Road, quite a little place. Naylor's Farm is about a mile away. There's a kind of lane goes off to it not long after the King's Head. Bissett Grange? No, I've never heard of that. Little Green House is just close by, not more than a few minutes' walk. Ah, I think I have already seen it from the outside. That is the most possible one, I think. It is in good repair, yes?" "Oh, yes, sir. It's in good condition, roof and drains and all that. Old-fashioned, of course. It's never been modernized in any way. The gardens are a picture. Very fond of her garden Miss Arundel was. It belongs, I see, to a Miss Lawson." "That's right, sir. Miss Lawson, she was Miss Arundel's companion, and when the old lady died everything was left to her, house and all." "Indeed. I suppose she had no relations to whom to leave it." "Well, it was not quite like that, sir. She had nieces and nephews living. But, of course, Miss Lawson was with her all the time. And, of course, she was an old lady and, well, that's how it was." In any case, I suppose there was just the house and not much money. I have often had occasion to notice how, where a direct question would fail to elicit a response, a false assumption brings instant information in the form of a contradiction. Very far from that, sir. Very far indeed. Everyone was surprised at the amount the old lady left. The will was in the paper and the amount and everything. It seemed she hadn't lived up to her income for many a long year. Something like 300,000 or 400,000 pounds she left. You astonish me, cried Poirot. It is like a fairy tale, eh? The poor companion suddenly becomes unbelievably wealthy. Is she still young, this Miss Lawson? Can she enjoy her newfound wealth? Oh, no, sir, she's a middle-aged person, sir. His enunciation of the word person was quite an artistic performance. It was clear that Miss Lawson, ex-companion, had cut no kind of a figure in market basing. It must have been disappointing for the nephews and nieces, mused Poirot. Yes, sir, I believe it came as somewhat of a shock to them. Very unexpected. There's been feeling over it here in market basing. There are those who hold it isn't right to leave things away from your own flesh and blood. But, of course, there's others as hold that everyone's got a right to do as they like with their own. There's something to be said for both points of view, of course. Miss Arundel had lived for many years here, had she not? Yes, sir. She and her sisters and old General Arundel, their father, before them. Not that I remember him, naturally, but I believe he was quite a character. Was in the Indian Mutiny. There were several daughters. 3 of them that I remember, and I believe there was one that married. Yes, Miss Matilda, Miss Agnes, and Miss Emily. Miss Matilda, she died first, and then Miss Agnes, and finally Miss Emily. That was quite recently. Beginning of May, or it may have been the end of April. Had she been ill some time? On and off, on and off. She was on the sickly side. Nearly went off a year ago with that there jaundice. Yellow as an orange she was for some time after. Yes, she'd had poor health for the last 5 years of her life. I suppose you have some good doctors down here. Well, there's Dr. Granger. Been here close on 40 years, he has, and folks mostly go to him. He's a bit crotchety and he has his fancies, but he's a good doctor, none better. He's got a young partner, Dr. Donaldson. He's more the newfangled kind. Some folk prefer him. Then, of course, there's Dr. Harding, but he doesn't do much. Dr. Granger was Miss Arundel's doctor, I suppose. Oh, yes. He's pulled her through many a bad turn. He's the kind that fair bullies you into living whether you want to or not. Poirot nodded. One should learn a little about a place before one comes to settle in it, he remarked. A good doctor is one of the most important people. That's very true, sir. Poirot then asked for his bill, to which he added a substantial tip. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure I hope you'll settle here, sir. I hope so too, said Poirot mendaciously. We set forth from the George. Satisfied yet, Poirot? I asked as we emerged into the street. Not in the least, my friend. He turned in an unexpected direction. Where are you off to now, Poirot? The church, my friend. It may be interesting. Some brasses, an old monument. I shook my head doubtfully. Poirot's scrutiny of the interior of the church was brief. Though an attractive specimen of what the guidebook calls early perp, it had been so conscientiously restored in Victorian Vandal days that little of interest remained. Poirot next wandered seemingly aimlessly about the churchyard, reading some of the epitaphs, commenting on the number of deaths in certain families, occasionally exclaiming over the quaintness of a name. I was not surprised, however, when he finally halted before what I was pretty sure had been his objective from the beginning. An imposing marble slab bore a partly effaced inscription, "Sacred, to the memory of John Laverton Arundel, General 24th Sikhs, who fell asleep in Christ May 19, 1888. Aged 69. Fight the good fight with all thy might. Also of Matilda and Arundel, died March 10, 1912. I will arise and go to my father. Also of Agnes Georgina Mary Arundel, died November 20, 1921. Ask and ye shall receive. Then came a brand new piece of lettering, evidently just done. Also of Emily Harriet Laverton Arundel, died May 1, 1936. Thy will be done. Poirot stood looking for some time. He murmured softly, May 1st. May 1st. And today, June 28th, I receive her letter. You see, do you not, Hastings, that fact has got to be explained? I saw that it had. That is to say, I saw that Poirot was determined that it should be explained.